How we doing, everyone? Today is Saturday, August the 5th, 2023, and we are continuing our real estate note training series. We're going to continue with our training on due diligence. That's kind of where we left off last week when looking at a performing note. What is the process? We have basically two levels of due diligence. We have an initial level based on how much money you want to spend, what type of return you're looking for, what is your risk tolerance, things of that nature. We try to find out in the beginning, and then once we know that, we have an idea of what you're looking for. Um, this is how we kind of go through our first level of due diligence to figure out what notes may fit you or fit what we're looking for. And then there's a second level of due diligence as well. So we're going to kind of talk about the second level a little bit more detail this week. Last week we talked about finding out what the asset price is. It's a bidding process, or are they just telling us how much they want for the note, whoever the seller is? We're looking at that compared to the value of the property. What's our investment to value? Are we in a good range? A lot of times we like to be within about 70% of the property value or less when it comes to a performing asset. We also look at the investment to the unpaid balance. If we're paying $10,000 today, and the unpaid balance is 11,000, I mean that's a little tight. It's not over a big concern, but if we could buy it today and then 30 days from now somebody wants to pay it off and then we just get $11,000, I mean we get all of our money back plus 1,000. But the goal is to try to collect these payments over time. So it's not a great issue, but we do look at it to kind of see how much of our investment is to the unpaid balance. So and then we also look at what is our yield, based on a $10,000 investment. After 12 months, collecting this $500 or $600 payment, whatever it may be, what is our return? What are we looking at on a yearly basis? Is it 8%, 9%, 10%, more than that, whatever it may be? So that's kind of how we initially look at things. Also, what we want to look at initially too is like, what is the rental value in this area? Depending on, is it somewhere around what they're paying currently, or is it a lot less? Is it a lot more? We just try to understand, what's going on in the area. So, it gives us an idea of where we want to, if we want to pursue it. And then also that kind of plays into some of our exit strategies. If, something were to happen, we have multiple exit strategies in these deals. So if something, worst case scenario, could I rent it? What could I do? And I'll just, we'll just know what that is in case we need that information. So we kind of do that surface level due diligence. And once we say, oh, okay, this fits, what the return we're looking for, how much we're looking to spend, we feel comfortable about the area. A lot of times on the initial part too, we want to look at, the demographics, see what's going on in the area. Is it a high crime area? Some people are okay with that, other people aren't. But once we do the surface level, which we can kind of get through pretty quickly, probably 15 minutes, a half hour, something like that. And then as you do this more and more, that you can kind of get through that a little bit quicker. Then we go to a second level of due diligence, and we're going to talk about that today. So that second level of due diligence, is when we start to really look at some of the documents and some of the paperwork and other things that go along with this particular property. So, that what we try to do is say, okay, if this is something that looks like we want to do and we want to potentially place a bid on it, we want to look at the property title. Now, we don't. That's not the first thing we want to do, because ordering a property title is going to cost you money. So you want to be, pretty sure that you want to move forward before you spend any money, because obviously that's going to be a part of the total price that you're paying for this notice. Some of these services and things like that go along with it. So you want to factor that in. But we do want to look at the property title. Sometimes the person that's selling the note has had it maybe less than 12 months, 6 months, something like that, they may have the property title that they can show you. You can look at it, and then maybe you'll just get like a refresher, and you won't have to. You can go back to that title company and just get it refreshed because it was done 6 months ago, or 3 months ago, or 9 months ago, and you just want to. And that'll save you money when you just get it refreshed or updated. You won't have to pay for a whole new one. But let's just say person has had the note for some years, 4 or 5 years. Then we're going to need to get an updated property title search just to make sure that our first lien position, there's nothing that is in danger of overcoming our first lien position. So we want to look at that, but again, we don't want to just automatically go right there right away. We just want to be able to make sure, like, yes, this is something that I'm interested in, but we will need that property title done. We want to see the types of liens that are on there. Sometimes on that property on the title report, you'll see what is called voluntary or involuntary liens. Voluntary liens is if maybe there's another mortgage on it. Maybe the person has a second mortgage, a third mortgage, some type of home equity loan that they took out on the property. Those are all fall behind this first position note, and you just want to be aware of that. It doesn't. It makes no difference to you because those people are behind you. You're in um, the priority position. So if anything does happen, you're going to get paid first. So, but that's just an example of a voluntary type of lien. Property taxes. That is also a lien that could happen, on a property if somebody doesn't pay it. A lot of times when you do these deals, you'll find that people are paying their own taxes. They're responsible to pay their own taxes. The person that's living in there, it's not necessarily escrowed. Sometimes it is. A lot of times it's not. Depending on where you're buying some of these mom and pop notes from single owners and things of that nature, they just may be handling it themselves and making sure that it gets paid, as opposed to going through a servicing company who will make sure that um, a portion of the payment that comes in goes towards taxes and insurance or in the escrow account. So you want to make sure that that's paid. And then too, a lot of times you can find that information as part of the initial due diligence. You can go on to a lot of these county websites and things of that nature and go to the tax record, and it'll show you if it is paid. Some areas are not as sophisticated as others, and they haven't got the technology where you can see it online. But a lot of times you can just call that county and say, hey, this property address, is it, are the taxes paid, anything behind or anything like that? And you can get that information over the phone. But that is a lien that can jump your lien. So we want to make sure, if we don't have to pay it today, we want to make sure, at what time must it be paid if it has not been paid already, and keep up on that and make sure that gets paid. Because if it goes to um, a tax deed sale, where they sell the taxes, there's a certain amount of times you have to redeem them. But when they do that, obviously interest and things like that occur when you buy those, and that can happen every month, and that can make it pretty steep if you don't jump on it and pay for it. So you want to make sure that is paid. If you can't find that information publicly, um, you want to reach out to someone, and locally, and make sure that the taxes on the property are paid. What else do we have here? Unpaid HOA. That could be um, that could also be a lien that is put on the property. Now, most of the times, in very rare cases, does the unpaid homeowners association fees and dues supersede your loan. They don't a lot of times go into first position when they're not paid. In some states they do. And we just want to find out that if is that one of these circumstances where it's still subject to the first lien. If it is, then you are, you're going to get paid, if they foreclose. And a lot of times they're not going to foreclose on 60, 70, 80, $100,000 property for three or $4,000, $5,000 worth of back taxes, unless this property is worth a whole lot where they could still pay you, get the property, sell it on the open market, get all of the money that they paid you plus to cover the taxes. But that's, very rare, and it won't, happen typically. So, the HOA a lot of times does not jump your lien if that comes up. In some states they do, so you do have to do the research. It's very limited states that do it, but there is a chance that could happen. Federal income tax and judgments. That does not supersede your first position note. What will happen is that you can get that discharged and taken off of the property, and then what they'll do is then try to find this person and attach it to maybe their wages or something else that where they could collect that money, because they're not in the business of trying to put a lien on the property, taking the property back, getting it to fix it up or sell it. You're not in the real estate business, so to speak, just to collect these outstanding this outstanding taxes. So there is a form out there that you can fill out and send in, and it'll get the lien released or discharged, I should say, from the property. So and then again, if they did foreclose because of this, you're still in a position where they have to pay you first. They have to make sure that you're paid. And that's why a lot of times they don't do that. They just discharge it and then try to go find the person and attach it to maybe their wages where they're working at now, or they find another way to get it. So, so if these do come up on the property title, you have to just understand where you are in the whole thing, and how much danger, or how much does it affect what you are purchasing. And in this case, these types are not, it's not a big deal, because they can get resolved. So it's not something to freak out about if you do see it. Unpaid utilities. Never heard of the utility company putting a lien on the property where they can then supersede your first lien. They may put a lien on there because the person hasn't paid. And if the property did go to foreclosure and there was any money left over, and depending on where they are, on the list of people that are owed, they could get some money. But a lot of times, again, they will discharge that lien or take it off, and then try to go find the person wherever they are now and attach it to something else to try to get those funds. And then what could happen is that a lot of times, if you are going to foreclose on the property, that is going to need to be paid as part of the foreclosure to be able to foreclose. It's a utility. Obviously they want to, they just don't want to wipe away their debt that they're owed. So many times it becomes a stipulation that you have to pay this $1,000, $500 cost to to be able to move forward with the final foreclosure. So again, you would have to factor that into the equation, of what it's going to cost you to foreclose. And if these things showed up on a title, you could get those questions answered. So we'll know that beforehand. So, and then again, that may affect your price. Maybe you bid, $20,000 because you know that you're going to take it to foreclosure and get the property back. But having to pay some of these things may affect your price. Maybe it's a $1,500, $2,200 utility bill. Maybe you have to go back to the seller and say, look, in order for me to finish this foreclosure and where the numbers are, I'm a little, it's a little tight, in terms of my, when I get the property back and try to sell it, I need to, reduce this. Some sellers will, understand and agree and may drop the price, may split the difference with you, or they may say, that's just the cost of doing business. So that becomes a decision that you have to make. But at least this before you finish, before you actually make the purchase. And that's why we go through that, property title to make sure, to see what things are out there on there that could affect, our purchase price, or the money that we could potentially make on this deal. And then civil judgments can't jump your first lien position. So if you see a civil judgment, you don't have to get too worried about that, because that can't jump your first lien. Again, they will try to find that person, and just make sure that they attach it to something else. But when it comes to the lien priority, they're not going to be able to jump your lien. So that's like the next step. Once we've identified some things, and says this looks promising, this looks good, I want to put an offer on it, and I'm thinking about closing it. These are the things that we then go and look at. And some of this stuff here too, like I said, is online. You may be able to find the taxes online. Um, you may be able to get that information and see, I got to pay extra $200 to kind of get this caught up, or I don't have to worry about it right now. You know, it's this year, it's still due, so it's not gonna go to tax sale for some time, or whatever the case may be. So we can weigh some of these things that we may need to pay, or just get discharged once we move to this next level of due diligence. So just wanted to, like I said, piggyback last week's conversation about the initial part of it, how we can kind of get through things quickly, and look at things that may be of interest to us, and then we'll go a little bit deeper and take that next step, and see the paperwork, and see documentation, and ask the no seller to see all the documents that go along with it. And just to touch on that, there should be a certain amount of assignments, depending on how long this property has been in existence, when it was built, how many times it transferred hands. When it comes to the security agreement, that's transferred through assignments. So on the property title, it should tell you, like, from the time the property was built, and when it transferred hands, all that stuff should come up on that property title. And if it does, you just want to make sure that it was assigned, this security agreement was assigned properly each time. And then you want to see the allonges, which is um, the note itself, on how you transfer the note from person to person. We want to make sure that all the allonges are there. If there are 3 or 4 different owners, we want to see 3 or 4 different transfers with the assignments and the allonges. Now, if there's a gap somewhere, again, that's not a huge problem. You just have to pay a certain amount to get that paperwork fixed. And a lot of times you can ask the seller, say, look, this wasn't transferred properly from such and such to such and such, and we've got to fix this. Would you reduce your price by $300 so I can go ahead and take care of it? Or you can ask them to make sure that they take care of it, because it has to be cured. And then you know and it may be something that you'll just pay for, just based on where you're getting it. If you're getting it at 60 cents on a dollar, or something like that, 62 cents on a dollar, extra $300 $400 to take care of that is still going to put you in a good position, because you're getting a good deal based on the value of the property. But we want to make sure that those documents and everything are in order, and are a part of the last step, in terms of before we get this thing closed, before we actually make a purchase. So there are assignments and there are launches. So we want to just make sure that's been transferred properly. So this is the step right before you actually fund the deal. And then we talk about exit strategies, different things like that. We'll get into more exit strategies probably next week, when we talk. We'll focus on exit strategies, as well as non-performing due diligence, non-performing note due diligence next week, for our next training. So that's what we'll look into. But once we've gotten to this point, we're pretty secure. And then the last step, again, is to kind of understand, what are our options here? What are we going to look to do? Are we just looking to keep this, collect these payments? Do we potentially want to get it, and we know someone else that you know may want to buy a partial, not to get too deep into technical, but if you purchase this note with 300 payments, you may be able to go ahead and sell 150 or 200 payments to someone else for the money that you paid for the note. And that person will collect payments over a certain amount of time that they purchase, but you still have an ownership interest in the property because it will revert back to you after those 150 months or whatever you sell. So you're in the deal for no money, and you're still owed a lump sum for all of those back payments. So I hope that didn't confuse anyone, but you buy a note with 300 payments, you can sell 100, 150 of them. And then after that 101st or 151st payment, that monthly payment comes back to you. Or if the property sells while this other person owns it, they're owed a certain amount of money, and then you are owed a certain amount of money based on those remaining payments that you still have an ownership interest in. So you could do that as well. So those are some of the different exit strategies that we can talk about and discuss next week. But it all depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish when we start thinking about the exit strategy. Some people just want the money there to sit and make the money each and every month, and just let it grow like in a retirement account or something like that for later on. Some people want to do some more things you know sooner rather than later with it. So it all depends, but there's a lot of different exit strategies that you can execute when you purchase notes. So we'll be back next week for training number 7. We'll talk about exit strategies for performing notes, and then we'll get into a little bit of the due diligence on the non-performing note side. We'll look at that. We'll look at that as well, the non-performing notes and some of the differences and some of the things that are slightly different on the non-performing side as opposed to the performing side of notes when it comes to due diligence. So we're here at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time each and every Saturday. We'll also be back Monday, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be answering questions about real estate notes and real estate in general on our Real Estate Lunch Talk on Instagram at Abundant Capital Group. Got a question here. It says, when buying a note, are placed on the deed as the lien holder? I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you ask it again? It says, when buying a note, are placed on the deed as a lien holder. You'll be in first position. A lot of times what we do is we buy first position. Typically you are placed on the deed. It depends on the type of security agreement that is on that particular property. A lot of times, so in some areas, they do what's called a contract for deed, meaning that the note holder or the person that owns the note is also on the deed. But if you're in like in a mortgage state and you offer the buyer a mortgage, the person that's on the mortgage is technically on the deed. So you don't necessarily own it from a deed perspective or a title perspective, but you do have an ownership interest in it because you are the note holder. So it will depend on the security agreement. The note holder a lot of times can be the person on the deed, and then there are times when the person that is making the payment on the note is actually on title as well. So hopefully that answered that question. So it all depends on the type of situation. So we'll be back next week. Look forward to for people jumping on, and if you have any questions based on watching this on the replay, just make a comment, ask your question, and we'll get an answer for you. But we'll be going live 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on Instagram at Abundant Capital Group on Monday. We'll be answering questions in regards to real estate notes. Also, we talk about relevant real estate related topics, articles, and things like that we see. And then we'll be back Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, usually between 8 and 8:15. And then we'll be reviewing actual note deals and other deals that we can structure notes on in case people want to see what we do and how we do it and what we're trying to do with these things and how it all plays out. We'll be doing that on Monday evening, about 8 or 8:15. We'll be on just doing live deal reviews. We're probably going to focus on creating a note on a property, showing you how we can do that on a particular property. Last Thursday we did it on purchasing a note. So you can check out that replay on the YouTube channel as well. All right, so we'll or I think it's on Instagram as well. I think when we went live on that as well. So you can go back and check that out if you want. But we'll see you Monday afternoon and Monday evening. All right, take it easy, everyone.